Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. We're about to get started here in a few seconds. I'm just going to give a couple more moments for people to log in. But I do want to begin as soon as possible, as we do have a lot of material to cover. Okay, we're a little past the top of the hour at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. So I think I'd like to begin. This is the Intermediate AutoTag Training Webinar. Today is Wednesday, December 20th, 2017. I will be your Windward training facilitator today. My name is Eric Johnson, and I'm a tech support engineer here at Windward Studios. I've been here for a couple months now, almost 3. You may have noticed that when you logged into the GoToMeeting webinar, you have a toolbar. The arrow that you see on the screen is to raise your hand. So if anytime during the webinar you have a question or you're experiencing technical difficulties, please feel free to click that button to ask your question or notify me of anything that's wrong. The only thing is the prompts I have for questions in chat are on my other screen, so I may not see your question immediately. So I usually wait until the Q&A session at the end to answer questions. Again, this is the Intermediate AutoTag Training Webinar. We assume that you've built some templates. They could have been very simple templates. You've installed AutoTag. You know how to use tags. You know how to connect to your data sources. You know enough about AutoTag to get you started. Maybe you have joined us last week for the basic AutoTag training webinar. For the machine I'm working on today, I'm using Windows 10 operating system, which is 64-bit. I'm also using Office 2016, 64-bit. And the version of AutoTag I'm using is 15.2.133.0. I'm not using the latest, what training computer wasn't updated, but we have released a new version on Friday. So there is a more recent release than the 15.2.133. Okay, I want to give you a high-level overview of what we'll be discussing today. I'll go over some advanced features with the for each tag. We'll discuss conditional formatting. I'll cover 2 types of conditional formatting today, one showing and hiding content using AutoTag tags, and a second type that formats output based on conditions. We'll go over the equation editor, using as an example we're going to use as an example sum function template. We'll discuss the if and switch tags and what the differences are. I'll show you an example of the import tag. And because we have so many questions about Excel and Excel templates, we'll go over the Excel differences at the end of this webinar. Then, of course, the Q&A session at the very end. So for the for each tag, let's review what it actually does. It does 3 things. First, it grabs a set of data, any set of data you'd want to pull from your data source. Second, it loops through that set of data that you selected to work with. And third, it repeats all the elements between the tags. I'll show you the importance of where to place the beginning and ending for each tags, and show you the results of placing these tags in different places. And we'll get into grouping data or nested for each tags, and I'll show you how to group your data with nested for each tags. All right, I'm going to minimize this PowerPoint presentation and open a blank Word document. Okay, my Word document opened on the other side, so I'm just sliding it over, and here we go. All right, this is going to be the example we're going to use, but let's start off with a blank one. Minimize this, get a blank document, maximize, blank. Okay. You may have noticed that in the AutoTag tab and also the AutoTag Manager tab, there's a Samples button. I'm going to select it to open the Getting Started guide. Here in the Samples Template section, under Additional, there are tag tutorials for SQL and XML. We're going to focus on SQL, as most of our customers are using SQL. Most of our new customers as well. XML being the second greatest use and JSON being the third. So I'm going to select the tag tutorials, SQL, and over on the right, we're going to review the for each tag sample, which is the fourth one here from the right. Let's open it up. Okay, we're going to focus on this first sample right here, the for each tag without a table. So it is possible to use the for each tag without a table. Yes, it's possible, as you can see from this sample. And below this, you can also see that you can use the for each tags with a table, as in here. This is what we discussed in the basic training. What I want to point out here in the sample without the table is where you place the beginning and ending for each tags, and why it's important when you loop through the data. Before we do anything, I'm going to select the for each tag, go to the AutoTag tab, and preview the data that we're working with. Okay, expand it a little. All right, as you can see, we're returning a list of categories, which contain the category ID, the category name, the description, and the picture. This is everything from the categories table. We're pulling in all of the information, all the columns. Okay, I'm going to close this. Now, what are we going to return in the alt tag that's next to the for each tag? Let's preview it to see. Okay, I'm going to select it. Go up to the preview. Okay, so now we're just returning a list of category IDs. As you can see, I'm pulling the category IDs from the category table for each record. There's 1 through 8 of them. I'm going to close the preview window. Now, what's this second alt tag doing? I'm going to select it, click the preview. The second alt tag is just returning a list of category names, also from the categories table. Here you can see beverages, condiments, confections, and so forth. And then we have our end for each tag right below the alt tags. Let's go ahead and show you the output of the sample right now. I'm going to click the output button. Okay, I'm going to split my screen. So on the left is our sample template. On the right is our output. You'll notice in the sample, we're just showing the category ID, a space, a dash, a space, and the category name. And that's each one of these categories are ending up on a different line in the output. As you can see here, we got beverages, condiments, confections, they're all on a different line. Well, how is this actually happening? What is inserting the next record on the next line? Let's go back to the template. You'll see that we added the end for each tag on the very next line after the alt tags. So there's nothing after the alt tag, nothing here, all this white space. Then the ending for each tag on the next line. If I go to the Home tab and turn on the Show Hide Formatting, you can kind of see what's happening more closely. Right after the last alt tag is this paragraph marker. So we're providing a carriage return just after the alt tag. So we can add the end for each just below it. So here's the paragraph marker, which is causing the new line, and adding the end for each right there. What if we took away the carriage return? Let's remove it. Now this places the end for each tag right after this final alt tag. What will the output look like now? I'm going to go back to the AutoTag tab. I'm going to close this output first. Go back to the AutoTag tab and select output. Yes, to save it. Okay, split the screen. Now the output looks very different. Here's a category ID, 1. Here's the category name, beverages. Then immediately after this, there isn't even a space. It starts the second record as it loops through the content. So here's 2, space condiments, and then right after is 3, space confections. If we look over here on the template on the left side, there's the alt tag for the category ID, a space, a dash, a space, then another alt tag for the category name. This is why it's lining up on the exact same line for each one of these categories. And then it gets right to the margin, here, wherever you define the margin as. Then it goes to the next line and carries on. It does this across the page, as you see here, as well as you go down the page. So if this was a list like we had earlier where these were separated per line and it carried on to the next page, AutoTag will generate the output carrying on the data to the next page as needed. Let's go ahead and change this back. So this was an example of why it's important to pay attention where you place the beginning and ending for each tag. So everything between these 2 tags, this out, hyphen, and out, are going to be repeated each time it iterates through the loop. Okay, that's all I wanted to show you with this specific sample. Before we move on, I'd like to point out this tag tree button. This is in the AutoTag tab. This is very helpful. I use this all the time, especially when I'm reviewing templates that I haven't seen before. When I open the tag tree, okay. I guess it needed to be saved due to some changes. So here we go. So I've clicked on the tag tree. I'm not sure of that message, but it seems like it was just a refresh message. So I've clicked on the tag tree, and now over here on the right, it will let me know all the tags that are in the template. Here, I'm going to expand the main story just so you can see all these different for each tags. So main story is the main document. If this template had tags within the header or the footers, it would display these also separately from the main story. So you'd see header, main story, footer. But since we only have tags in the main document, we can see all these for each loops that's set up in the sample. One thing that the tag tree does to help you out, if you double click any one of these tags, AutoTag will take you directly to where that tag is in the template. Let's go ahead and double click this last for each tag, the customer loop. Oh, there we go. See on the left side, AutoTag brought us down to the customer loop for each, the last one, and we were on the first page, and now we're on the last page. So this can be very helpful when you're trying to locate a specific tag, especially if you haven't seen the template before. Now, let's expand the customer for each tag in the tree. So let's expand that. Okay, now let's discuss its makeup. So there's an outer for each loop, which is this customer's loop right here, and an inner for each loop, which is this second loop right here, which is connected to the outer for each loop. This is where we'll talk about grouping or nesting for each tags. You also see that there's a company out tag, another out tag, and a couple of end for eaches. This end for each relates to this inner for each, and this last end for each relates to this outer for each, or the customer's loop for each. Below the tag tree is this properties window. Gives you a snapshot where you can change anything within the properties. You can change any of these attributes. Or you can view the query that's related to this tag. I mean, you can see what it's returning. So it's returning a bunch of columns from the customer's database where the customer ID starts with an A. Okay, so this is the same thing as opening the more advanced tag editor. Again, it just gives you a quick snapshot of what's happening with this tag down here in the properties window. So back to our sample, the customer loop. What's going on here? We have an outer for each tag, and we want to group some data based on the company name. Let's preview the customer loop so we can see the data that we're working with. So I'm going to select it up here, preview. All right, it's returning 4 records. It looks like all the company names start with A, as we saw over here in the query tab. And then we're also getting all the customer IDs as well. Okay. The next thing between the beginning and ending for each tags is this company name out tag. I'm going to select it and let's preview it. I preview a lot of times just to make sure that I am getting the data that I'm looking for. So with it selected, preview, are we actually returning the company name? Yes, we are. And I'm going to close this window. Next, after the alt tag, is another for each tag, an inner for each tag. Let's select this inner for each tag to see what it's returning. Let's go up here and preview this. Okay, this is a lot more data. You can see by the scroll bar here. So I'm going to expand this just a bit. Okay, so we're returning all the orders that pertain to this specific customer ID. So this is just the first record that's being returned. So let's say that you have a list of companies that you want to see all of their orders for each company name as it goes through the list. This is exactly what we're doing here in this sample. All the customers, so then I get the customer, display the name, do a loop, display all the orders, repeat it, and then once that is done, end for each, back to the next customer. Okay, so now what is this alt tag showing? Let me select the alt tag and let's preview the data. Okay, this alt tag is simply returning just the order ID and nothing else. Even though we're getting all other information from this for each tag, the only thing that we're actually displaying in this alt tag are these order IDs. So now I'll take a closer look at how this will look in the output before we move any further. So I'm going to go up here, click output. Okay. I'm going to split the screen. I'm going to close the tag tree, give some more room. And I'm going to scroll all the way down I think I passed it. Yep, right here. To the grouping for each tag that we've been talking about. Let me scroll this down a little more. So we have our loop in the template. And over here on the right, you can see the results of the loop. Here's the first company name. As you can see, it starts with the 1, which we have over here before the company name. And then all the order IDs associated with this company name. Then it iterates to the next company name. And we keep going down the page until we run out of companies to display. And there's the last one. All right. So back to this number 1 on the list. How is it repeating the number 1 for each one of the company names? Here we are grouping under specific company names. Let's close the output and see this. And how do we tie? Okay, how do we tie this inner for each tag data, this one right here, to this outer custom loop for each tags? Let's look closer at the outer for each tag. Let's select it. And up here, you can see its variable name is var name 10. The variable is what AutoTag uses to identify this for each loop. Let's remember var name 10. Now let's select the inner for each tag and select the wizard button up here in the tag properties. This opens our SQL wizard. I'm going to expand this so we can see it better. Here's all the columns that we're pulling back within the inner for each. I'm going to minimize the column section right now, as we're not going to be focusing on this. So in the template, how do we tie this inner for each tag with the outer for each tag? We do this through this filter section right here. Okay, you can see this is already set up. I'm going to expand the tables and the orders over here. Basically, what we're doing is we're collecting the customer ID from the orders table. You can see this here in the filter. And we're setting this equal to the value of var name 10. Remember, var name 10 is the variable name for this customer loop in the template. Having that equal to the customer ID of that var name 10. Since we have two primary keys here, customer ID and customer ID, with identical customer IDs, we can utilize that and connect it to the outer loop. Now, if I click on this value, the var name 10 customer ID, then click on the drop down, I have a quick shortcut here that shows me the var name 10 loop and all things that I can connect it to. There's the customer ID and the customer name. We're, in this example, using the customer ID. Okay. You'll notice over here on the right in the data pane, there is that first customer ID and all the orders that pertain to that customer ID. So this is how we connect the inner for each loop with the outer for each loop. Okay, and close this. I'm going to generate the output again so I can see it one more time. All right, split the screen and scroll all the way down to the example right here. All right, what I now want to explain is what is actually happening when we generate the output with the engine. Each AutoTag has a small .NET engine. Each AutoTag has a small .NET engine built into it. What's happening is our engine is completely stripping out the data from your template, then collects that data, and then rebuilds from scratch, from top down, everything that's in your template. So it shows the data that you wanted as you formatted it within the template. What's happening here in the template is AutoTag collects all the data for the customer loop and all the data within the inner for each loop, ties it together, and then when it produces the output, it says what's after the customer loop. The first thing that comes next is the numbered list and the company name. Then what does it do? It goes to the next line and it sees the inner for each loop. So it grabs that data and displays the tag from this inner for each loop. And this is what we see in the output for the order IDs. It will do this for all the order IDs for this company. It will loop through showing everything between this inner beginning and ending for each tag, which is this out tag. It will then go to the next line, and when it comes across the ending for each tag, this tells the engine to go back to the outer loop and collect the next record. And then repeat the process, iterate through the loop, collecting all the order IDs, and then going on to the next company name. So this kind of gives you an idea of how the engine is tearing down the template and rebuilding it from scratch after pulling all your data from your data source. So this is how you group your data using nested for each loops. Next thing I like to go over before leaving this sample. On the page above is the nested for each loop sample. Okay. So this is the sample I'd like to be discussing now. This is a nested for each loop sample. We've been creating for each tags using row-based formatting. We're now going to focus on this sample here. This one right here, which shows you how to create for each tags using column-based formatting. The for each tag can be used for the column major expansion. Let me show you how this is accomplished within this sample. There are three things that are different when you want to create columns instead of rows. The example above is typical when creating a row-based table. There's a for each tag within the table. It's going to loop through it, displaying all these alt tags with all the formatting in the table cells, and then the for each tag and for each tag, which is outside the table. This is typically what you want to do. But in this next example, the tag is inside the table. Before we go any further, let's preview this for each tag to see the data that we're returning. I'm going to select it, go up here to the AutoTag, and preview. Okay, so we have a list of categories. We're very familiar with this by now. We have the category ID, category name, description, and the picture. Okay, what are we displaying? Select the alt tag and click preview. So we're just displaying the category names, beverages, and such. So instead of creating a list top down of a category name, we're going to create columns left to right across the page. Let's show you the output now to see how this is looking. Output. Split the screen. And let's go down to the example. All right, here we are right now. This sample displays what looks like column headings. On the left is our template, and on the right is our output. You can see that instead of going top down, we're going left to right, expanding the table, creating new columns. The formatting is a little off because we reached the end of the page and we didn't actually format these column cells that well, but we could have based on the data that's returned. Also, typically when you place the end for each tag within a table, it should create a blank row at the very end of the list. We should see it right here after all these columns. But we're not seeing that blank row. Let's look at why. I'm going to close the output. Okay, so there's a couple ways to edit a tag. You can double click the tag and click on the edit button in this AutoTag tab section. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to select this end for each and then click edit tag. All right. The end for each tag is not really used to query anything. It's just used to tell AutoTag when to stop looping through the data and repeating the elements. Now, within this properties tab, there's one attribute I like to point out. It's this delete row attribute. And this attribute right now is equal to true. This is why we're not showing the last blank row. Now, if I were to turn this off by double clicking it, which sets it to false, I can save it. Click save. What is output going to look like this time? So I'm going to go ahead and click output, save it, yes. I'm going to scroll down. Let's split the screen. I'm going to scroll down. There we are. Now see, before we didn't have this blank row, but now we do. And that's because we turned that property delete row for our end for each to false. Last thing that you need to do is to change the property value for the for each tag to create columns instead of rows. Let's do this by double-clicking the for each tag to open the tag editor. So over here, double-click the for each tag, it opens the tag editor, just as the same way as when we click the edit tag button. This is a little more robust than the preview button here. This is a little more robust than the editor we saw earlier on the side. We have a preview button. I can click preview to see the data that we're returning. Here are the categories that we saw earlier. There's the wizard button, just like the button on the AutoTag tab. And this I can use to see my SQL wizard. And then there's the equation button, which I'll show you a little later. And that adds an equation for the tag. And there's the next and previous buttons, which take you to the respective tabs without actually exiting the tag editor, which is cool, so you can stay in here and then work on the next tag. On the left, just like the data bin, there's the tables and the views we have access to. Over here on the right is our query window. Now your query window is probably white. If you click within the window, if you right click within the window, there's this color scheme option. I'm using base 16 ocean dark. What is normal, I believe, is plain. I'm just showing you this to show you that there is a difference. Okay. If we click here in the Properties tab, there's some advanced attributes and some standard attributes. And these tag attributes. You'll notice this order property, and it's set to column. If I click the drop-down list, we have a few options. So if I select it, click the drop-down list. So there's legacy, row, and column. Now, legacy is what is used by default, and legacy isn't much different from row. What it means is it's the original way we built the tag. Now, this row attribute does a little more. If you want to delete a row with the end for each, you'll have to use this option. This is what we had to. This is what is set so that we didn't see that blank row after the column-based table. But if you want more information on this, on legacy and how it's different from row, you can always visit our wiki page. But since we're expanding by rows, since we're expanding not by rows, but by columns, we'll want columns set for the order. With it selected, we'll save it. Okay, let's change this back. Let's just show you one more output just to show you what this is looking like. And again, here is the blank row. All right, so let's change this back. I'm going to go back to the end for each. Maximize this. I'm going to go to the end for each. As we want to delete the last row this time, I'm going to double click this end for each to open the tag editor. I go to the Properties tab and change delete row back to true. Save it. Now, when we generate the output, we should not see that extra blank row. Scroll down. And here. Now we don't see that blank row anymore. So 3 things, excuse me. Make sure your for each tag is set to column, and the end for each tag is within the table, and the delete row attribute of this end for each tag is set to true. Okay, I'm going to close the output, and let's go back to the slides for a moment. Okay. Okay, we talked about row, column, and legacy. We talked about the delete row attribute, and this attribute deletes the row from where the end for each tag is placed. All right, we have over 50 equations or functions available for use. Let's take a look at some. I may be speeding up because I'm a little behind on time, but I want to get this all in for you. So please excuse me if I go a little quick, but I want to make sure we get all this covered. So I'm going to open up the sample that I had opened a little earlier. This one, using the sum function. Here, we're going to add a sum function to create a total of the sales amount for the list of salespeople. You can see I have a sales table here. There's a for each loop, several alt tags, displaying the salesperson, the number of calls they made, the leads generated, and their sales amount. Now, before we do anything, let's take a look at our sales loop. Let's preview it. Click here, go to AutoTag, and click Preview. Okay, so it's returning the salesperson, number of calls made, the number of leads generated, and the sales amount. Same thing that we're showing in these alt tags. Before we add the sum function, I want to show you how to display red text for those salespeople not meeting quotas. We have that set up already. So any salesperson who doesn't meet a specific sales quota, their sales amount will be listed in a specific color. So how is this done? I'm going to double click the sales amount alt tag to open the tag editor. Let's expand the var1 variable here in the data tree plan. This var1 variable is just relating to our sales loop right here. This is all the data we're returning for the var1 for each tag, the salesperson column, calls num, leads generated, and sales amount. Now let's go to the properties tab. In this tag section, there's a condition. I'm going to expand this so you can see it a little better. Move that over. Here we go. There's an equation already set up for us right here. If I click in the condition field, you'll notice the ellipsis, this ... at the end of the line. If I click it, it opens this conditional formatting rule manager. Wherever you want to add an equation or whenever you want to evaluate data, you want to begin with an equal sign, as you can see right here. There's the equal sign. Then there's the $sign and a bracket. Then the var1, which is referencing the for each loop. And then from the sales loop, grab all the sales amounts. And if they're less than 8,000, do something. Now that we have our equation built right here, what if we want to format it in a certain way? If I know the formatting code, I can add the syntax here, as you see, or I can click the wizard button. And this opens the format options window. Here I can italicize, bold, underline, strike through, give it a text color background. And since we're working with a table, you'll see a cell table tab. I can format the cell. I can format the border, the line style, the line color. I can give it a cell color. I can set the alignment. But I'm going to go back to the text tab. For this example, we're going to change the color of the text to red for the sales amount if it's less than 8,000. So we've entered the hex code in the text color field for red. Unfortunately, we don't have a color palette. That's something we want to add as an option. But for now, if there's some color that you want to reference, maybe a company logo, maybe a color used throughout your template, you can go to Google and search for the hex color for that value and enter the 6-digit hex code here in this text color field. So FF and 4 zeros is the color red. Click OK. Click OK. So here's the formatting. Foreground, exclamation point, FF000. If we wanted to add a new rule, we could click this Add New Rule. We can also delete rules. But this is all we want to do. We want to show the sales amount under 8,000 in red. We'll click OK. We'll save this tab. Now let's generate the output so you can see what it looks like. Save, yes. Okay. I'm going to split the screen. I'm going to turn off the show hiding formatting. It's looking a little busy. So go up to the home and click that show hide formatting. So you can see any sales amount that is less than $8,000 is displayed in red. So we're able to highlight those sales amounts that are not meeting their quota, make it really stand out. So this is one way to conditionally format an alt tag for output. Now let's show you how to add a sum function. What if we want to total all the sales amounts within this table? How do we do that? Well, we'll need to create a new row in our table underneath this first row. So I'll highlight this N for each tag, delete it by using this delete tag button. Now we'll add a new row. So what I'll do is I'll click on this plus sign, adds the new row. Okay, and now we're going to do what I told you not to do earlier when it comes to row-based templates. And this is a row-based template, so we're moving top down. And that's add the end for each tag inside the table. This is what I told you not to do for a top down, but for this example, we're going to do it. So I'm going to place the cursor in the second row, this leftmost column. I'm going to go to the tags button, select end for each. Now let's add some text next to it to see what we're doing. Since we wanted to give the total of sales amount, let's go ahead and add the text here. Let's format this text to help it stand out. Let's go to the home. Let's bold it and right align it. This will look better on the output, I think. Now that we place our total, now we'll want to place our total right next to the total label under the sales amount. So let's insert an alt tag, AutoTag, tags, alt tag. We'll double click the alt tag to open the tag editor. Let's now click on this equation button. It opens this insert function window. We have a list of categories. It's all by default. And let's go ahead and click on the math and trig one. We now want to select a function. Since we want to sum the sales amounts, we're going to scroll down here since it's in alphabetical order and select the sum. When we select it, there's a description of the function right here. Sum adds all numbers in a range of values. It's exactly what we want. I'm going to click OK. And this now opens the function's argument window. Here's the equation. Equal, sum, brackets. You always start with the equal sign to evaluate, which was done here for us. There's the sum function with the open and close brackets and nothing between them. Let's add to this equation what we're going to sum up. We can enter in the number 1 field what we want to sum, or we can click on the wizard button. By doing this, it opens the SQL wizard. Now, what we want to do here is expand the tables, then expand the sales. This is where we've been collecting our data from. We want to take the sales amount right here and total it up. So what we'll do is we'll drag the sales amount to the column section in the middle here. Now in the data preview, we have all our sales amounts. This is exactly what we want to sum up. All we need to do is to drag the sales amount to the columns section. Click OK. Now when we come back to the function's argument window, you'll notice to the right of the number 1 field, the first value that's being returned. This is the first value that's being returned. There's also the grand total, the formula results. It's not formatted, but it is down here at the bottom, or also right here. Now our sum function has data in it. There's a SQL SQL query, pulling the sales amount from our sales table. It's exactly what we want to see. Okay. Now you can see here's our query that we built through the query through the equation editor here in this queries tab. I click save. Last thing we need to do, since it's going to print out the value, let's format the data. Let's select the alt tag and click this Format Data button. Just like in Excel, what you're probably used to, we're going to go ahead and click on currency. 2 decimal places, yes. Negative numbers, yes. Okay, that's what we want to do to show the sales amount. So we're going to apply the formatting and close it. Let's make this grand total amount bold, just like we did the label. So I'm going to select the tag and make sure I have the whole tag selected and not just part of it. Go to the home tag and I'm going to bold it. All right, now let's generate the output to see what it looks like. Save it, yes. And there you go. Here's our table with the extra row. Since we've added this N for each tag within the table, this N for each tag right here, it's giving us this blank row. But we utilize that row by adding the grand total of these sales amounts. Great sample for showing you how to conditionally format the text for certain values that are returned within the for each tag, and also adding a sum function, one of the many functions within the equation editor that you can utilize. All right, I'm going to close this output. Oh my God, we're getting really close. I'm so sorry. I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little. I'm sorry, I respect your time. Try to get through this and make sure I don't leave anything out for you. All right, now let's go back to our AutoTag Manager tab. and select this samples button because I want to now show you conditional formatting using if tags and switch tags. Make sure the tags tutorial SQL is selected, and let's open the if tag. This gives you step-by-step on how to utilize the if tag. So let's look at this first example here. Now the if tag is perfect when you want to show or hide specific elements with your template based on some condition within your data. I'm going to select this first if tag, which is going to evaluate what's in the if tag, the data here. And if it's true, then we're going to display everything between this beginning and ending if tag. If it's false, it's going to skip over all of this until it gets to the ending if tag and then carry on. Let's look at this beginning if tag. What data are we actually evaluating here? Let's preview it. Okay, in this if tag, we're evaluating if 1 is less than 2. This is the equation that we're testing with. This is a simple equation. You'll probably do something more robust, but it gives you an idea of the functionality of the if tag. Since 1 is less than 2, this is always going to return true. So this means we're going to display the alt tag, this alt tag. If it was false, it would just skip the alt tag and go to the next thing. Now look at the alt tag. What are we actually going to display since this is true? Click preview. All right, all it's doing, I'm on the if tag, select the alt tag. There we go, select preview. All right, all it's doing is providing some text that states 1 is less than 2. Okay, that's all it's doing. Now let's take a look at the output. Split the screen. Okay, 1 is less than 2. Okay. Let's now look at this example, this next example. As you can see, the output indicates that 3 is less than or equal to 4. Why is this showing? If we were to preview this if tag, all we're doing here is evaluating if 3 is greater than 4. Of course, 3 is not greater than 4, so it evaluates to false. Since the first if tag is evaluating to false, since this first if tag is evaluating to false, what it does is AutoTag skips this first alt tag and moves to this else tag. This else tag right here. And it will provide everything after the else tag to this ending if tag. Right now, this is a simple alt tag, but it could be an entire table. It could be several pages of information. Sometimes people want to show or hide info based on the state they're in. California has different laws where they want you to show more information versus somewhere like Indiana where they're not needed that much information. Doesn't matter what comes between these tags, the if else and end if else. You're going to show or hide certain elements of your template based on this condition. If we were to click this alt tag after the else tag, since this if tag right here is evaluating to false, it's going to move to the else tag and display this tag instead. Let's preview it. Okay, this alt tag just contains text that reads 3 is less than or equal to 4. And it's exactly what we see in the output here. So if the first if tag was to evaluate to true, this alt tag would display. Instead, this alt tag would display instead. Let's take a look to see what it would display. So I'm going to go in and preview. and it's just more text, and it's just saying 3 is greater than 4. So that's what it would display. 3 is greater than 4 if this if tag was to evaluate the true. It doesn't, so it displays what's in this alt tag, which is 3 is less than or equal to 4. That's the if tag. So you'll want to use the if tag if you just have 1 or 2 conditions or choices that you want to evaluate. But what if you have multiple choices that you want to evaluate to? Say 3 or more conditions. You can nest if tags like you see in this sample right here, where there's an if tag, an alt tag, an else tag, another if tag, an alt tag, an else tag, alt tag, and then 2 end if tags. 1 for each one of these if. Each one of these end if tags relates to these if tags. But if you're going to use multiple conditions, maybe 3, we suggest the switch tags, switch case tags. Let's take a closer look at these. Let's go back here, open our Getting Started guide, do the Samples button. Now I want to look at the switch tags. There's 2 of them, but let's choose the second one. It's more, you'll give a better example. So here we have another table. Looks like we have the customer information. Let's click on the customer for loop and click the preview button. See what we're returning. All right, looks like we're returning a lot more data here. Okay. We have all the customers, their customer IDs, first names, last names, phone numbers, and so on. As you can see, there's quite a bit of information here. And close this preview of the data that's being returned for this customer's for loops. Okay. So what data are we going to display? We're going to display the first name, last name, address, city, state, postal code, and country. Here in this country column is where the switch tag has been added. Here's the switch tag right here. All the switch tag does is it just tells AutoTag when to start evaluating these case tags. Here's the beginning of the switch, and here's the end. So you may have noticed that this switch tag and the case tag are slightly different, have a slightly different red. The switch tag being a little darker than the case tags, just to point that out. Okay, so right after the switch tag is our case tags. So here it looks like we're evaluating if the country belongs to Canada, then we'll display the Canadian flag. Let's look at the value we're evaluating here. So I'm going to double click the Canada case tag, which opens the tag editor. So we have our equal sign, always starts an evaluation. We have our var1, which just refers to this customer for each loop. And we want to look at the country region name for the customer loop and check if it equals Canada. Okay, we'll close the tag editor. And if it does, then we'll display the Canadian flag. We'll then do this for the US flag as well. And if it equals United States, we'll show that flag. We'll do it for Mexico. And if it equals that, it'll show the Mexican flag. And lastly, we'll check if the country is Australia. And if so, it will display the Australian flag. So as soon as it meets one of these cases for each of these case tags, it's going to exit this switch, move to the next line item in the list, which is this ending for each tag, and then loop through again, loop through this customers for each tag again, showing the specific flag for the next customer. Let's look at the output. Okay, split the screen. So the first record in the list, John Yang, belongs to Australia. We saw the Australian flag here. If we scroll down, you'll see that Lauren Walker is from the U.S., so we're displaying the United States flag. If we keep going down, you'll see the Canadian flag, which is the country of Luke Law. So we're evaluating 4 cases, 4 case tags. So there's 4 questions or conditions we're asking. We're going to ask whether to show or hide certain values, these flags, based on the customer's country. Right now, we're just showing and hiding this flag image for each record. All right, so that's the switch case tag. Really sorry, we're over on time. I see that I still have some people here, so I'm going to continue on to give you everything that I try to show in the intermediate. All right. Last thing I want to show you is the input tag. We're going to go to our input tag samples by clicking the sample button. And then, so there's 3 of them: input tag, HTML, and import tag image. I'm going to select this first one. This gives us a little of everything. So it looks like we're importing an image here. There's a PDF file that we're importing. Import a docx, text, or HTML pages. Let's go ahead and take a look at the output. Split the screen. Okay, what we see in the template is, what we see here in the template is just an image preview. This is a tag. If I double click it over here, you will see that it opens the tag editor. You can see the path to this Windward 2 PNG file that's being returned. So what it's doing is it's showing you the preview in the template so you can see this image size and the layout upon output. I like to point out that the importing of a PDF file, there's nothing being printed out for the importing of this PDF file. The reason we're not showing in the PDF here is because the only way that you can import PDF is by output. The only way you can output to PDF is by first importing. I got that backwards. The only way you can import PDF into your output is by outputting the document as a PDF, and I'm doing it as a docx right here. But if this was a PDF, you would see a lot more information. All right, and the last thing that I want to show you is Excel, because we do have a lot of questions about Excel. So let's minimize this. Let's open Excel. Open a blank workbook. So first thing you do when creating a template is connect to a data source. So I'm going to go up here in the AutoTag Tag Manager and click this Data Sources drop down and connect to a recent database that I've connected to, this Northwind XML. This opens the data bin, and you can see I'm connected to the Northwind XML database. I'm going to use this employee's parent node for this example with all these children. We're not going to use all the child nodes, but this example is going to utilize this employee's parent node. So what I'm going to do is show you how to insert multiple tags in one cell within Excel. Okay, so within Excel, I see cells as basically mini Word documents. Excel is a very different application, but to include multiple tags, within this cell that I've selected. I'll show you how to do that. So let's first add a for each tag. Okay, we'll give it a nickname up here. Now that it's named, let's select what data we're going to select. So we'll go to the data tree. And let's grab the entire employees data. Okay, now you may have noticed that this tag is not color-coded. Usually for each tags are orange in Word, but we can't color code in Excel because it doesn't allow us to. When we actually color code within Word, we're using what looks like a hyperlink. So we're referencing a Word function hyperlink. And this is being used to make the tag color. Okay, but to add an additional tag within this cell, all I have to do is keep the cell highlighted, go back to our tags menu, and let's say I want to add an alt tag. When I do this, you'll notice this prompt. Select where you wish to insert a tag. Well, I want to insert a tag right after this employees for each tag. So I'm going to click right after it. You can see now I have the alt tag right after the employees for each tag. Okay, I'd like to now focus on this properties section. You can tell what tag you're referencing here. So as this has multiple tags within the cell, this properties section right here will let me know I'm looking at the alt tag. We need to select what the alt tag displays. So I'm going to go back to the tag tree. And we're going to select the first name for this one. Let's give it a nickname. First name, okay. Now it's a little easier to read. Now let's add another alt tag in the C column. Let's give it a nickname. And we're almost done with this. Sorry for going over. I really apologize for that, but thank you for staying and sticking this out. So I've given this alt tag nickname. I'm going to select the data that we're going to be displaying. And let's expand this column a lot more. And let's add one more alt tag in the D column. Give it a nickname. Okay. All right, so what do we want to return in this one? We'll go up to the data tree, select country. Now we have our beginning for each tag, which is our employees for each tag. The last thing we need to do is add the ending for each tag. We'll do it just like in Word, but we're referencing the spreadsheet here. So we'll add the end for each tag on the next line of this table. Let's give this a nickname too. And for it. Let's now produce the output. Save it to my desktop. Okay, I'm going to close the data bin. Perfect. On the right here is my list. I have the first name of all the employees, the last name, and the country. The columns are even formatted the exact same way I made them over here in the template. Now let's pretend that you need to add some text before the first name. How do I do this? Let's go ahead and close the output. select the B2 cell. So we have 2 tags in this B2 cell. So if we go up here to the formula bar, you'll note that every tag starts with a less than WR. Each time you see this is a separate tag. So here's a less than WR, and here's another less than WR. So there are 2 of them up here. So we need to add some text right before this alt tag. This alt tag right here. So I'll place my cursor between these 2 tags, add space, A, B, C, for example, another space. You can even add text after the alt tag. So over here, I'll add a space, DEF, just for example. So there's the A, B, C before the alt tag and the DEF after the alt tag. I'm going to click this checkbox over here to the left of the formula bar. Okay, you may see that in this B2 cell, that ABC is between the for each tag and the first alt tag. And expand it to make it a little easier. Okay, even though there's no DEF after the first name alt tag, it's not displaying here in the template. This is okay. It will display in the output. So I want to show you that the text won't appear if you put it after the tag. Let's produce the output. Ooh, the output. Say yes. Split the screen. Now you see there's the ABC, then the first name, and then the DEF. This is what we added here within the formula bar. So that's how you can add text before and after alt tags within a cell. Last thing I want to show you to wrap up here is deleting a tag. What if I wanted to delete a tag in a cell that has multiple tags? Say I want to delete this first name tag. So what I'll do is I'll select the cell, click the delete tag up here within the AutoTag tab. The prompt appears that asks us to select the tag we wish to delete. So what I'll do is I'll put my cursor on this over this first name, and I'll click on first name. As you can see, the tag is gone. But ABC and DEF is still there. Again, it's displaying after the tag, so it won't display in the template. Let's do the output. And we removed the first name, and as you can see, all that's left is the ABC DEF. All right, that's all I wanted to show you in Excel. Sorry I went over. Let's go back to the template, to the PowerPoint. If tag, I showed you the if tag, how it evaluates when true, shows everything between the beginning and ending if tags. Switch tags, if you have multiple evaluations or conditions that you're trying to check against. For instance, 3 or more, you'll want to use this switch case tags. Excel differences, we talked about the Excel differences. I do want to mention that it does concatenate the formula bar for you if you have a very large amount of data that you're collecting. We concatenate this for you so you don't see that 255 character error. We support native charts, and we support the most popular native Excel macros. Here is our support resources. You may want to take a screenshot of this. While we're on this side, here are the resources that you can utilize. If you want to look up anything from our knowledge base, you can do this at wiki.windward.net. Constantly updating the wiki. We're actually revamping it completely. You'll see a new wiki come out in the next few months. If you want to find, if you can't find what you're looking for, you can reach out to our amazing support team at support.windward.net. You can also email them at support@windward.net So if you have any questions you can't find an answer to, go ahead and contact our support team. And if you want to make any changes or have any feature requests that you want to add it to the engines AutoTag, you can do this through ideas.windward.net. All right. Well, again, sorry that we went over. I do apologize. I respect your time. I just glad you hung on and wanted to make sure I still presented everything to you. There's going to be a survey at the end of this webinar. Please feel free to fill it out truthfully and provide any feedback. This will help me and the attendees in the next webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any questions. If so, we can answer them now. Okay. So a question is listed. Can I build a query with more than one function? Yeah, very good question. Yes, you can. Though I think you may need to write your query yourself. So let me just open up an AutoTag blank one, connect to a data source, one that we've done recently. Add an alt tag. Double click it to open the equation editor. Sorry, the tag editor. And so yes, you can. So what again, I think you have to write it. So what I would suggest is go into the equation editor, finding what you want to use. Let's say you want to concatenate two elements within your XML file. You can see the function right here. You can use this to get an idea of the nodes and how to enter them. So concatenate the first and the last from the employees table. So by doing that, this will give you the first part of the equation. You could then go back to the wizard and say you want to learn how to do something with URL and code. Say you had first part of the concatenate was the path, and the second part is some text that you need to escape, and you need to know how to do escape. You can use this URL and code and do the same. And then based on those two functions that were returned, you could create here's the concat URL and code, shows you how to do it. And based on that, you could come in here and enter the two equations manually. All right, well, sorry again for going over, but thank you for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and goodbye now.